Thank you all for joining us today. There's been a renewed focus on ensuring that taxpayer dollars are being spent wisely, that government agencies are being run efficiently, and that instances of waste, fraud, or abuse are dealt with urgently and fairly under the law. These are certainly not new ideas. I believe most voters in Alabama support a government that is efficient, accountable, transparent, and that functions to preserve and protect our freedoms. We strongly support government efficiency and accountability, but we also believe in the checks and balances that are designed to promote the common good and to also help us avoid the unintended consequences of decisions motivated purely by greed for wealth and power. That's why efforts to improve efficiency and accountability have to be done with intelligence, with fairness, and with precision. That's why doctors use scalpels instead of chainsaws. And the same should be true as we look to our government. This is particularly true at a time when more of our personal information is being collected by government and corporations for a wide variety of purposes with no oversight or accountability. Of course, situations where there's no oversight or accountability are where abuse is most likely to occur. That's why I'm introducing the Government Information Privacy Protection Act, which would establish strict limitations on the sharing of state collected information with the federal agencies or private entities. This bill would ensure that such data cannot be disclosed without notice and accountability measures. By preventing unauthorized federal and third-party access to state collected data, this is how we can make sure that your private data stays private. In legitimate cases in which personal data needs to be shared with another agency, this bill will require written explanation from the federal government. In addition, GIPPA would also restrict third-party contracts only to vendors that meet strict data security standards. The bill also mandates annual privacy training for state employees handling sensitive data to safeguard against misuse or abuse, and further establishes civil and criminal consequences for unlawful data disclosures. As I said earlier, we can all get behind efforts to improve government efficiency, but we must also do it in a smart way that protects the people we serve. That's why I believe our foremost priority in this effort should be an ironclad guarantee to our voters that your personal data will not be used without your permission or for purposes that could leave you or your families vulnerable to abuse, scams, or fraud. Perhaps the novelist Tom Clancy captured it best when he said, "The control of information is something the elite always does, particularly in a despotic form of government. Information, knowledge, is power. If you can control information, you can control people." Part of our march toward our freedom includes the idea that freedom means not having to worry or be afraid that your private information is being disclosed without your knowledge or without your consent. So, as we join together to improve accountability and transparency in our government, let's begin by protecting the fundamental right to privacy. That is how we can march forward for freedom, and march forward knowing that our private data is safe and shielded from abuse. Thank you. And at this time, I would like to now introduce Representative Philip Ensler.
Thank you, Representative Chestnut, and good afternoon. First, let me say I share the sentiment, of course, that the idea that we should always be looking for ways to make government not only more efficient, but also make sure that it's measurably effective. So the efficiency and effectiveness are key. As legislators, we are entrusted with the responsibility of oversight. That means ensuring that government spending is lawful, appropriate, and accomplishes its intended goal. In order for oversight to be an effective tool, we must think proactively rather than reactively. Too often, it's only after the fact that we discover that public money was not spent effectively, when it's too late to do anything about it. To put it simply, if we want accountability, it has to begin at the very start, rather than it becoming important only when things begin to fall or go off track. That's why I'm introducing the Dynamic Oversight and Government Efficiency Act, which would require a macroeconomic analysis of all government programs exceeding $50 million in projected or actual costs. It would also mandate retroactive scoring of programs to ensure ongoing fiscal accountability and to optimize government efficiency. Now you might be thinking, what in the world is dynamic fiscal analysis? That not only is a fair question, but it's also how this bill will help legislators make better decisions on investing and spending taxpayer dollars. A dynamic fiscal analysis is a proven method that evaluates the long-term macroeconomic effects of proposed or existing programs, including projected impacts on employment, economic growth, and government revenues. Taking this approach will help lawmakers make better decisions regarding costs and benefits upfront rather than taking a wait-and-see approach. The bill also requires that this information be published in a timely manner to give ample opportunity for the public to review, make comments, and provide local input. I think many of my colleagues would agree that in the legislature, we spend a great deal of time addressing issues that are the direct result of unintended consequences or the failure to properly plan ahead. Hopefully, this bill will be a significant step toward improving government accountability by heightening public awareness and ensuring that due diligence and independent research is performed to get the most out of taxpayer dollars. I'll close with the words of President Franklin Roosevelt, who said, "Let us never forget that government is ourselves and not an alien power over us. The ultimate rulers of our democracy are not a president and senators and Congress members and government officials, but the voters of this country." I believe we all can agree that voters have the right to demand accountability and that it should guide the entire process rather than only occurring when things fail or miss the mark. Thank you, and now I'd like to turn it over to my colleague, Representative Calvin Lawrence.
Thank you, Representative Ensler. As Representative Ensler said, there has been a lot of attention recently on improving government efficiency, effectiveness, and accountability in the state of Alabama. And we have already taken steps in that direction. For example, in 2019, we created the Alabama Commission on Evaluation of Services. Since its creation, the commission has certainly done good work and in fact has 14 publications regarding important subjects that impact our state in a variety of ways. Like I said, I think this has been a good first step, but I think we can do more by taking a different and more targeted approach. That's why I'm introducing the Government Efficiency Commission Act, which would establish an independent commission tasked with reviewing state agencies, cutting waste, streamlining regulations, and improving services to better serve taxpayers and, more importantly, promote economic growth. The commission would accomplish this by conducting a zero-based budgeting process to evaluate all state agencies, programs, and services. As a part of that process, it would also identify redundancies, underperforming programs, and opportunities for consolidation or elimination of duplicate programs. Another important task of this commission would be to review all state regulations to identify those that are outdated, duplicative, or overly burdensome. Once identified, the commission would then propose a comprehensive plan to streamline or repeal unnecessary regulations, prioritizing those that hinder economic growth. The commission would also focus on increasing revenue by identifying state-owned assets such as real estate, infrastructure, or utilities that can be sold or leased to generate long-term revenue. Of course, one of the most important duties of this commission would be to engage citizens and stockholders by conducting public hearings and forums to gather input from citizens, businesses, and community organizations on the effectiveness and opportunities for improvement. This information will be put together in a public available report that will be submitted to the governor and the legislature to outline potential cost savings, projected impact, and a timeline for implementation. As we said when the Alabama House Democratic Caucus unveiled its legislative agenda, Forward for Freedom, at the beginning of this session, your freedom and your future depends on an effective, responsible government that promotes fairness and prosperity for all. We believe in an equitable, transparent, and accountable government that protects personal liberties, ensures public safety, and helps every Alabama citizen pursue the American dream. For Alabama to thrive and prosper, together we must move forward for freedom. Thank you all for the time, and at this time, we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
For Representative Chestnut, may I ask you, your bill, is it a response in any way to what's going on the federal level with Doge, excuse me, and is this kind of trying to be proactive to prevent what's going on
Yeah,
on the state level?
Yeah, we just wanna make sure, like I said earlier, we wanna make sure that, if something can be done with a scalpel, then let's not use a chainsaw, right? So we obviously wanna deal with, waste, fraud, and abuse, but wanna deal with it in a very measured and a very responsible way. And we also want our state agencies to be able to interface with our federal government in a way that's not in a fearful way, but in a way that is accommodating, and in a way where the state agency doesn't feel like, hey, we're engaging in sharing too much information, right? That nobody wants to be responsible for someone, being opened up for real fraud and abuse, right? Identity fraud. So that's what we're trying to do. We're just trying to be active. We're trying to be forward thinking. Thank you.
For Representative Chestnut, with your bill, is there a back door in there for us to share information with ICE so that they can hunt down illegal aliens, or DEA so they can, better pursue drug traffickers? I mean, we don't want to shield that kind of information from those agencies, do we?
No, but that's not necessarily the intent of this particular bill. I think there are some other bills out there that might address that, but, we're just trying to make sure that when we do this sharing, that we're not sharing it in a way that opens up that individual's information to be used or exploited in a way that, that's not intended. We're trying to curtail unintended consequences.
Separate issue, but Mr. Ensler, you had to stall your bill today in committee. When are we gonna see that?
Sure, yeah, and just to be clear, on the Glock switch bill, that this version that the Senate passed yesterday, they inadvertently took out some language that is needed to accomplish the goal of the bill. So we just wanted a week to clean up the language, but expect to see it in committee next week.
Any concerns that it's actually getting slow walk?
No,
that
not
it's
at all.
even gonna pass?
Absolutely not. It was an inadvertent and unintentional. What happens is, and everyone sees this, when amendments come up and there's a lot happening on the floor, it just sometimes happens really quickly, and that's all it was, just an honest mistake.
Okay. Still gonna go through public safety?
Yes.
Sure. Mr. Chestnut, just for clarification, your proposal that you were talking about when I walked in late is talking about protecting private information, keeping people safe, keeping them from having their business basically exploited by others, is it not, sir?
Yes. The state collected information, right? Which obviously federal agencies will from time to time contact state agencies to get some of that information and that data. We just want to protect it.
Representative Ensler, similar question I had for Representative Chestnut. Is your bill also a measure to be proactive to avoid, you know, retroactively looking at state agencies declaring waste and then suddenly making big cuts? Yours would kind of allow its efficiency to be analyzed in real time, more or less. So would you characterize it as a proactive?
Absolutely, yeah, it's proactive and, you know, often at times we'll pass legislation, particularly, ones that are a large amount of money, then later on say, well, oh, that wasn't the best use of funds, or we, you know, should have tailored it in a more specific way. So by having that independent, objective analysis, to see the economic impact of it, it just provides additional context. You know, as legislators at times, we make decisions based off of, you know, what we hear from constituents, or what we read in a news article, but to have an objective, you know, macroeconomic analysis, everybody can work off of that to decide, is this a good use of taxpayer dollars?
Has there been any communication with your Republican counterparts as far as government efficiency and everything like that? I know, Speaker of the House, Ledbetter was telling the media last week that they were gonna start having press conferences, with certain actions they were taking as far as certain committees. Have y'all talked with them about what government efficiency looks like, as a whole?
In a broader perspective we have, but I think this is a culmination of, just hard work and years of kind of studying, researching, kind of see what we can do to kind of make sure government works efficiently. And it's just kind of, I would say, kind of, the stars just kind of lined up because what we're dealing with the federal stuff right now. And I think at this time it was kind of like, it was a perfect opportunity that the caucus bring this forward, because this is something that we've been working on for several years now.
Thank you.
Rep. Lawrence, last question from me. Can you explain how your bill would differ from the Alabama Committee on the Evaluation of Services? It sounds very similar.
Well, mine will really focus on making sure that every agency works efficiently. You know, we hear all the time that there's a lot of waste and a lot of overkill in government. And so what we're just trying to do is make sure, because as a committee of the ETF, we hear from all these agencies all the time about the money that they would like to have. And what we want to do is make sure that's money that we're giving them, that is efficient, and then they're doing what the money intended for. Just making sure that we're good stewards of taxpayer dollars. That's basically what we're trying to do. Any more questions? Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Well,